This is Tacoincidence, an unconventional masterclass where we learn secrets of breakthrough culture, brand experience, and human connection from the most brilliant leaders, all while we're on the search for the perfect taco. I met up with Jeff Kearl at Sancho's Tacos near the beach in San Clemente, California. He has redefined the sock industry by creating Stance, one of the most popular, comfortable, and wildly uncommon sock brands in the world. As an investor, founder, and entrepreneur, Jeff has keenly observed market trends and fills their needs with the most enviable of products, whether that's socks or headphones. But it really doesn't matter what he's selling. He's more concerned with building a team and inspiring them to reach their potential. I wanted to learn why he believes in the power of culture, brand experience, and human connection, what he does to create it, and how it's helped him thrive. All over tacos. It really doesn't get much better than this.
So I've always had a question.
Yeah.
Where does the logo go?
Well, we initially designed it on the inside.
Okay,
So they would be on the insides.
I'm wearing it on the outside.
Yes. But here's the thing. Like early on, there was a couple of skateboarders that were like on the cover of Thrasher magazine, and they were wearing logos out. And so from then on, kids just started wearing them logos out. And so really, I'm not sure it matters.
But your initial thought was logo in. What was there any reasoning behind
It was
that?
just as simple as like
So
that was the
person
last.
could look at them.
It was like there was 3 inches left of unbranded real estate on the human body. And we're like, that little space between the cuff of your pant and the shoe, it's like, we got to take that. And it seemed like if you're in a meeting, you'd cross your legs, you'd see the logo.
You're like displaying it.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was the initial thinking behind it. And also when we looked at other sock companies and where they placed their logo, they were all doing it up high. And no one else was sort of using the exposed part. So it's like, of that, could we trademark that? Could that become the spot?
Yeah.
That's the benefit of being first.
Right? First to market. Well,
Yeah.
and really like owning a market, starting a market, which is, I mean, it's a huge sock market, but it's now much larger because of Stance. So what is that all about? Like, tell me how that, I mean, I know that you have like your 5 criteria of how you choose, how you chose different businesses to be involved in.
Yep.
But you guys have created an empire.
I don't know if it's quite an empire, but we have certainly grown to be larger than I believe we thought we could be when we first started. We didn't think it would be as big as it is. That's true.
What are some of the key things that you've done to really create that?
There were a variety of things. It would be hard to go back and try and create attribution for every good thing that happened to us along the way. But I think at the very beginning, one thing that we did was we didn't look at it as just a sock. Yes, we considered the product. We highly considered the product. I think I bought 500 pairs of socks before we ever made a pair of socks. And we had deconstructed them. We'd looked at their labels, how they were fastened. We'd taken pictures of the displays in different retailers. And most importantly, as I was shopping for these 500 pairs of socks, I would ask lots of questions to the salespeople. So we weren't certain yet we wanted to do a sock business. So we would go into, let's call it Macy's.
Yeah.
And I would go to the sales associate on the floor and I would say, hey, I'm shopping for socks. What do you recommend? What's most popular? What size is most popular? What color is most popular? Do people buy this as like an add-on? They're buying something else? Or is this a destination item? Do people come to Macy's specifically just to buy a sock?
Yeah.
And so having had those conversations with so many store associates, we actually kind of knew what socks were selling, how they were selling, and what we did at Stance was different. Yes, we considered what the sock was made out of and the machine that it was made on, so the construction and the ingredients, and we completely changed how that was done. We considered the packaging. Instead of folding the sock up where you couldn't see the design and wrapping a sticker around it, which was what was common back then, and then a little cheap Chinese Tatchet clip for your peg hook, and that packaging would practically fall apart by the time it got to the retailer. We completely redid the way the sock hung, the way it was packaged, the way it broke apart. And then not only that, we provided the retailers with special racks with oversized peg hooks so that no other sock in the world could fit on our oversized peg hook.
Yeah.
And the most flattering part was when brands started years later using oversized peg hooks like ours, theoretically, to poach our peg hook space. And so when we went to the retailers and we said, we're thinking about doing this business, here's the name, here's what the line could look like, here's how we're thinking about pricing, here's how we're thinking about positioning, here's what the rack would look like. And one retailer said, the rack's too tall. It needs to be shorter. This is a high loss item in our store. We need to have good visibility on the rack. Can't be too high. And let's put it on wheels. We're not sure whether it will sell better by the shoes or by the cash register. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of questions that needed to be answered. So when we came out with racks, there was a wheel option. Rack was a little shorter because that's what retailers had asked for. Sure. And so we'd really taken into consideration like a whole program.
Your secret, or one of them, seems to be this concept of total differentiation.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a comprehensiveness to it as well. So the way that I looked at it was some variables are out of your control, like product market fit, how many customers will like this, which retailer buyers will give you the time of day, like hard to control those things. But the things you can control, like the quality of the people you hire or you put on your team, the way you go to market, your execution, your operations, like how many great companies have come along and then shipped their product late? It's like a self-inflicted wound. They might have had great product market fit, but they're just fumbling. Mm-hmm. And so our idea was no fumbles, no turnovers. Like we're gonna play a flawless game.
Execution.
Anything we control, let's be really good at that. And if the market gives us some curveballs, all companies have difficult times, we'll at least be confident that we have the right people, we've made the right decisions.
So how do you get those right people? How have you created that? Like what does that look like? Well, getting those right people on your bus.
For every company, I think right people is a different definition. And so when we talk about Stance, we have 5 values. Mm-hmm. And our first value is entrepreneurship. And that value maybe to some person might have its own set of definitions. To us, we define it by, here are the behaviors you will have if you're demonstrating this value. And those behaviors for us might be, well, they are. You're savvy. You can figure things out on your own. Your first approach is, I can do a lot with a little. I don't need a lot of resources. Whereas some people that come from big companies are like, I can't execute unless I have a big team and lots of money. We're just the opposite.
Scrappiness.
Yep. Scrappy, gritty, figure it out.
Done. Yeah.
We want people that are comfortable working on their own. They don't need a lot of oversight. They're confident in their decisions. We know if you're entrepreneurial, you're gonna make mistakes. So the way we think about risk reward is we want to encourage risk taking, bold moves, but when we fail, let's go back and look at how good our thinking was. So when we would talk about entrepreneurship to our company, and we're thinking about what are the behaviors of an entrepreneur inside a Stance, those are the things we're talking about. Is this person savvy? Do they figure things out on their own? Are they continuous learner? Do they make bold bets with good decisions, good information? And once you factor all that in, it's like, okay, for us, that's a great employee. And we have 4 other values too, but we think about them in the same way, where we say we value these behaviors. And then to reinforce it, when we're hiring people, we screen for those behaviors.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so what does that screening look like?
When we're promoting people, we're like, we want to promote you because look at how well you live these values.
Yeah.
And then probably the most defining one is when you actually fire someone because they didn't live the values. And it doesn't mean they were a bad performer. They just didn't align with the behaviors you believe are unique to your culture that make you successful.
That's how you measure.
We're very clear around all the behaviors of success at Stance. And we talk about them in our town hall meetings. We present a different value each town hall meeting. We talk about it in our new employee handbook when you're on the job. We reinforce it constantly. And so over enough years, it begins to become part of how things are done at Stance.
So it's just part of your DNA. infused to everything you do, informs all of your decisions.
Yep. The kind of people you hire, the way you work.
Yeah. So awesome. Is there one particular story that comes top of mind about how someone has like gone, like just like crushed one of your values? Like, I don't know, what was your value this month, or like some recent something that comes to mind?
We do talk about it a lot, but one thing that stands out, one of our first values was gratitude. And the way we operationalized that is we said, you must write one handwritten thank you note a week.
Awesome.
And we don't care to who. Could be to your spouse, could be to your parents, could be to a friend, could be to a Stance supplier, could be to a Stance customer, could be to a teammate. Like, we don't care if it's inside a Stance or outside a Stance.
Yeah.
We just want you to spend 5 or 10 minutes, think about something you're grateful for, and write it down, put it in the mail. And the culmination of that over years and years, the number of people that come back and say, I got the best thank you note from someone in your customer service department, or the thank you notes I've received inside of the company for different things, like, hey, thank you so much for whatever thing happened that really changed my life. So that's been a really great part of Stance. Just one simple behavior, 5 to 10 minutes a week, that actually, there's a famous quote by Cicero that says, you know, gratitude is the virtue that is like the mother of all other virtues. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. We've seen that for sure.
It's powerful. It sounds like a company virtue, actually. You know, I mean, it's like to foster that sort of environment where it's just gratitude is valued, and you're doing what you can to make the world a better place. You know, one thank you, and handwritten thank you note at a time, which is such a rarity. It kind of goes, I mean, it bleeds really nicely into your mission and your mantra of this uncommon, you know, because it stands out, right?
Well, it's funny. The best brands in the world stand for some concept that is bigger and more abstract than the products they sell. So you could look at Nike and you could say, oh, it's a shoe company. Or you could look at Nike and say, no, this is actually about celebrating competition, celebrating great athletics. It's something bigger. Yes, they sell shoes and apparel and some other things. That's not really like what drives the soul of the company. And it's hard to transition from being known for a product to being known for a movement, like a greater purpose. Like, the best brands have done it over a long period of time. So as we grappled with that, and we were trying to figure out, A, what's something that's unique that hasn't been done before, something we'd be proud to stand for, something that we could tell stories about. Great brands tell stories. It's kind of this book that never ends, and every year is maybe just a chapter. And I wanted my children to recognize the gifts that were unique to them, be like, wow, this is unique to me, and then wear that on their sleeve proudly, whatever it is, versus just be a sheep, you know, blend in with the herd. And then at some point, like in their early 20s, I think people that are lucky find an independent person. It's not a friend, it's not a family. It could be their first boss, their first manager, a university professor. It's someone that didn't have any context about them, who recognizes value in them, believes in them, and that is transformational. I was lucky I had an early boss who did this, where it was clear he saw my potential as more than what I saw my potential. His name was Dave Williams.
Where was this?
It was at a little company called the Covey Leadership Center, working for Stephen Covey.
Sure.
And
a transformational environment in and of itself. But yes.
And it was clear, like, he viewed me as more than I viewed myself. And when that happens early, that is an unlock, right? Because now you're free to express yourself, you're free to be you, and you feel empowered. And it's like, you hope your kids have that with someone in their life. You can't provide it for them, but you can provide it for other people. So you can ask yourself, hey, who am I leading?
And so telling that story through the lens of obviously this narrative of becoming yourself, celebrating your originality, but what does that look like with socks though? I mean, you're like selling socks. So, you know, many people, I would say the vast majority of business owners are looking at like a product, a physical something, and they're selling that product. They don't think of this mentality of like, we're looking to connect with people. We're looking to celebrate who they are. And so how does someone that is selling a product or a service, how do they embrace this mentality? What does that look like?
Well, for us, it was really simple. We'd look at a sock wall and we would see how all of the existing sock companies were positioned. Were they positioning on price, value through multi-packs? Was there any design or color? Was it conservatism that was selling? Was it durability? Was it technical features like moisture management or anti-blister? Like, how are these companies positioned and why are people buying the product in the first place?
Yeah.
And so it was, how do we create something that is clearly different than all the incumbents? And that could be packaging, it could be color, it could be price, could be all of those things are reconsidered. And I think you could do that for nearly any category, from bottled water to school supplies to luggage, jewelry. You can find spaces of white space and ways to position differently that would cause the consumer to think differently. And so with that mindset, anytime I look at a category in a retailer, that's the view I'm looking at. How is everyone positioned?
Yeah.
Considering all those elements. And then really asking the question, two questions. One, could you position differently? And if you did, might it be successful? And then the second, maybe even more important question is, let's just say you're right. How big is the price? So it doesn't even make sense to disrupt school supplies. Probably low gross margin, seasonally sold.
Those are part of your criteria,
typically
right?
bought in a big box. Like, even if you did have the coolest school supply company, I'm not sure the reward is that big.
So I'd love to go back to this idea of supporting and celebrating like human originality, which like really resonates with me, and obviously with, you know, how many customers do you figure you have?
That's a good question. We sell north of 20 million pairs of socks a year, not including our underwear or our t-shirts. I think depending on whether it's purchased in a store or online, it's somewhere between 2 and 3 pairs per person.
Okay.
So you could say we're probably serving something in the neighborhood of 6 million, 7 million customers a year, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a real number.
That's a big number. And those are a lot of people that are loving their socks, and at some point like feeling like this brand is a reflection of who I am, and to some degree. So how do you connect with people on a personal level when, well, like celebrating this human originality, you know, videos, your ad, your like how you reach out to people, obviously social media, things like that. But are there any stories that stand out in your mind of how people have felt connected, have like unlocked their potential, similar to what you just said about
David Williams.
David Williams. What are some of the personal ways that you like address the personal nature of people celebrating that originality?
Like, I think there's 2 layers to it. One is we enable people to wear socks around things they love. So for example, if you're a San Francisco Giants fan, yes, we can do an orange and black sock, but that's not really magical. What's magical is figuring out something about the heritage of the Giants. If you grew up in San Francisco, like I did, and you went to cold, windy games at Candlestick, going all the way back to like Willie McCovey days, the kinds of food that was served in the stadium, the walk to the parking lot, and you're able to design something that captures all of those elements and brings them to life. Some of those elements are probably forgotten. And you're a Giants fan, that moves from a fan product to I have to have that product. And it allows them to really connect to the things they love on a deep level. So there's the kind of wearing product side of it. The other side of it, which I think is the big question, is do we actually inspire people to make different life choices based on following their heart, defying convention? The common denominator is actually something more abstract. And it just took some time to discover that. And then I think the people that initially thought we were turning into top 40, just selling another record, realized, oh, no, they've stayed true. They have integrity to what they believe.
Yeah.
We just didn't fully understand it. And so it takes time. I think most of our competitors have 50, 100,000 followers on Instagram. And they're posting pictures of product. And we're well north of 1 million. So let's call it 10 or 20 times our competitive set. And they might think we're posting pictures of product, but what we're really doing is telling stories of originality. And with time, you begin to discover that it's not just another picture of a sock. It's some story about being different. And so I think that's why people are willing to follow us, because they're interested in hearing a new story about that.
Yeah.
How interested can you really be in another picture of a sock or a t-shirt? That seems like a flawed approach.
Yeah. So why do so many people do it and so few people, not just in the sock or accessory business, but like in business in general? Why do so few business owners not get that?
Mission-driven businesses are rare and they're hard, right? They require you to have conviction around things you believe in, say no, be disciplined.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I think it's hard. It takes consistency and focus, especially from the CEO, to lead out and be the one that champions the thank you notes, be the one that champions no guys, we're not saying no, or we're not saying yes to this celebrity that has 10 million followers or 100 million followers or whatever it is, because we could.
Yeah.
Staying true to that core. So how would you guys have been wildly successful. What does that success, how does everything that we've talked about, the values, staying true to those values, how does all of that, what type of results have you seen from that?
Well, there's really two types of results.
And how do you measure those results? What does that look like for you?
Success is a funny word, especially in business. It's a funny word in your personal life also. So if you were to ask me, what do I hope for my kids? It's really that they're just kind and respectful. That's the definition of success. I hope they choose a vocation that they can put their heart into, feel passion for, have great friends, great relationships. That's success. It certainly is not connected to how much money they make or what their job title is or some external award. It's really, did they live with integrity and treat other people well? That's success. So in a business standpoint, you could define success as just something as simple as the financial results. Or you could say, no, we not only care about financial results, but we care about other things also. Is this a workplace that inspires people? Is this a workplace where people find joy when they come in every day? Do we impact our community? Do we create jobs? What else can a business do besides just make money? And so when I was thinking about Stance, it wasn't, let's go build a business to make money. What I missed was going into the office every day and working with a small group of really great people. What is a great person to me? Inspirational, high integrity, creative, positivity. It's you go into work with these people and you're energized to be around them. They're probably intelligent. They're probably ambitious. For me. So success for me was, I want to create a collection of people that have those attributes. And I don't really care what we sell. I don't really care if it's socks or a t-shirt or something else entirely. If I'm having that daily experience for 8 hours a day where I work with great people, that's successful. So I would have told you that Stance was pretty successful 1 year in, even though our financial results were super small and not meaningful.
What are your ideas about changing the world through this either business model or this mindset or through people's connection?
That's what transforms it from that would be cool to I have to have it. The emotional connection now can be deep. And then on the repurchase, it's if you hear someone describing stance, they usually talk about the socks are so soft. I have a pair I've washed for 4 years and they look brand new. Or, I go running every day. I used to get blisters. I never get blisters now. Whatever their comment is, it'll almost always be something about like the functional nature of it. It's not, oh, that cold weather, San Francisco Giants, Candlestick Park, windy sock they did. Like, that won't be the comment, but that's why they tried us.
Yeah.
You have to have both.
You got them hooked, and then you deliver on exceptional quality as well. Like, that has to be there too. It's a fundamental.
You have to have both.
How do you get more leaders to tap into that and to like really unleash that, like unlock that potential of doing something more than just like making a buck?
The real answer is the best leaders have some element of independent thinking and some level of originality to do things differently, which is why they get rewarded. And what I mean by this is there's a term in business that's very common. You hear it at almost every board meeting. It's the term best practices. And best practices is one of the dumbest terms in business. If you're saying that word, you should be checking yourself. Because what you've just said is this is what everyone else does. That's what best practice is. It's not best practice, it's common practice. And common practice doesn't yield above average results. Common practice
results, yeah,
will yield the common result. So yeah, if you want to be like everyone else, copy their employee handbook. If you want to get the results like everyone else gets, copy their product. If you want to get the results that everyone else gets, copy, copy, copy. If you want to get above average results, then that requires independent thinking. And to do that, you actually have to be an expert at best practices. In other words, you have to understand what everyone else does, and then you have to then be able to think orthogonally to the pack. Everyone else is doing it this way. Why are they doing it that way? Question that, and then creatively come up with a better way to do it. And whether that has to do with the way you operate your business, the innovation that you put in your product, your company culture, which is something that's really hard to copy, right? Because it is this collection of unique behaviors that's so unique to the people that work there. Unless you exported all the same people, it'd be very hard to copy. Mm-hmm. So long story short is the real answer is you had to think differently, and that's hard. But when it works, it gets rewarded at a much higher level. Now all the accountability and the initiatives have been placed on the individual, and you have individuals that operate at a high level of accountability that care about their work product. If their signature is going on it, whatever it is, whether it's in their professional life, their personal life, they have a quality sensibility that is above average. They care. That's who you want to hire. Yeah. So instead of doing annual reviews, we said, let's double down on our screening process, figure out what the attributes of these people are. How do we find these people, attract these people? Once we get them here, how do we keep them excited and motivated? And then what are the communication? What's the interval to kind of connect it back to the business? So the solution ends up being very different than the commonly used one, because you question all of the thinking behind the commonly used solution.
That's amazing. Well, and it's you see what happens when you give people that level of trust. You see what happens, and they exceed expectations. They're holding themselves more accountable than, like you said, than
Absolutely.
You could.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. You could abolish office hours at most businesses, and people will still work the same amount or more because they care if they're that kind of person, right?
And they're bought into what you're trying to accomplish. Awesome. What's your favorite? What are a couple of your favorite sock designs? I'm just curious.
So I do occasionally wear socks that mean something to me personally, but that's an example of the emotional connection is me riding that Hosoi hammerhead skateboard around my town when I was probably 14 years old and loving the shape and all these great memories of riding that board. And so it's like, man, if I could connect back to Christian Hosoi in some way, that's personal for me. And so it was cool. And we had all those guys, they come skate our bowl. And so those are the kinds of socks that I love the most.
What would be one thing that you would suggest to other leaders like yourself for any business, at any level, Like, what would be one thing that you would suggest to them about creating an experience that would help them thrive? Like a brand experience, a company, like when brand experience, like it's employees, it's your vendors, it's your suppliers, it's everyone that has any touch point with your business. What would be one thing that you would suggest to them to do that they could even do simply today to improve and dial up this level of brand experience?
Well, look, a brand is this living and breathing thing. I feel like it ages like a person. Like what a brand is and does when it's very young is a little different than when it becomes a teenager. It starts to harden the persona when it gets a little older. Like there's processes, and it's like that's what it is. Harder to change it at that point. It's less formative. So I think a lot of it depends on the stage of the business.
Sure.
But I think the advice is the same for any leader. The reality is the single greatest impact you can make is with the people. So the advice for me is always believe in the people. Find the people that you believing in their potential will unlock potential because they don't even believe in themselves. And in the same way that you have a vision for what your business can grow into, you have to have a vision for what the people can grow into and have the level of trust that you can have these kinds of conversations with your peers. And it's sort of in the spirit of, look, I'm going to be your accountability partner, not in the traditional sense, but maybe in the sense of, let me ask you some questions that would provoke your thought and development. So not so much a critique, but more of a true help and assistance. Like, how can I help you? And by the way, that's probably the single best question you can ever ask as a leader. Anytime I ever finish a one-on-one with any of my people, the last question I always ask is, what can I do to help you? Give me specifics, right? And that's really the definition of helping someone develop. Let them be great at the things that they know how to do, believe in them, but then be able to help them in the things that they're working on, that they're struggling with, whatever that is. And if you get that in harmony and all your people are aligned, like that will make a great work experience, and I believe ultimately produce better business results.
It's amazing to see the impact, and I'm so excited for what's to come. So, and what the future holds for Stance, and this year and beyond. Well, thank you so much. I mean, it's been amazingly enlightening to hear your thoughts about business, about life, about originality, tapping into potential. It's been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, happy to.
And for introducing me to the Flaco Taco. That one I'm going to come back for.
Flaco Taco's real.
It's real. And the OG, you just can't go wrong, right?
Special thanks to our host, Sancho's Tacos, for creating the ideal place for us to talk about breakthrough culture, brand experience, and human connection. That Flaco Taco and OG really knocked my socks off. Sorry, couldn't resist the reference. Join the taco journey on my website. You are not going to want to miss out on the resources, courses, and of course the National Taco Tour I'm planning when I launch the book, Search for the Perfect Taco. So follow me on social media, subscribe to my channel, and tune into another episode of Tacoincidence, where we'll continue to explore the secrets to level up your culture, brand experience, human connection, and your taco game. Okay, just throwing this in here. El Pilon.
Man, these look so good. I'm really curious
Pretty
about
solid.
this Flaco Taco.
Flaco Taco's the unexpected winner.
Yeah. That's a strong recommendation.